The NFL stands for not for long.
Set Sharga and Armstead. Roll out. Walker still running out. Looks to the left. Wide open. Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards of him.
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Colin Thompson Show. It's been a while. A lot going on in personal life, a lot of really good stuff. We'll have a big pod coming out next week, kind of updating everybody what's going on. So thanks for your support. Thanks for support from our sponsor, the original Fudge Kitchen. That's right, fudgekitchens.com. They ship fudge and sweet treats around the country. You know the drill. All up and down the Jersey Shore, Ocean City, Stone Harbor, Wildwood, Cape May, multiple locations. If you can't get down there, they will ship it right to your door and all their sweet treats. Tell them we sent you at the Colin Thompson Show, or go online at fudgekitchens.com. Zach Spiker today. We did this interview in the beginning of football season, August, September, and we've been hammering football and doing a bunch of stuff. And there's a bunch of things going on. I said, you know what, Jack, let's get the Zach Spiker thing out. We're going to wait kind of for March Madness basketball, but let's get it out now. Zach is tremendous. We became friends through my agent, Pat Capra, and Pat's a great guy, and the guys over at Legend Agency are awesome. And Zach and Pat went to college together, and Zach's just a grinder, a guy that played Division III basketball, worked his way through the ranks of college basketball. You'll hear kind of his story, but he's really just a football fan, just a great guy, loves living in Philadelphia, loves coaching in Philly, coached at Army, went to West Virginia. Or he has some like really cool stories about growing up in Morgantown and his dad. And so without further ado, Zach Spiker, thanks for joining the show, brother. Enjoy, guys. All right, legendary basketball coach, Drexel, the Dragons, Zach Spiker. Coach, we made the mistake. I didn't hit record, which is fine. A lot of good chatter off there. We have lots to talk about. We're going to talk Cape May. We're going to talk whitewater rafting. We're going to talk West Virginia, Penn State. We're going to talk. But you talk, I think, listen, you have this amazing basketball track record, right? A lifer, the guy grinder all the way up, head coach at Army, head coach at Drexel. But you mentioned something cool about your pop. And I thought it was really interesting. You said your dad was in football, athletic trainer for 30 plus years. What an experience that must have been for you to learn about working hard and sports science and how to treat people the right way and travel, etc. But tell me about this. Let's hear it. What do we got? Dad.
Yeah, I think really, I think anyone's success, you point back to their family and to their parents, and parents or guardians, whoever's around them the most. And certainly that impact situation is the same with me. Watching my father be an athletic trainer at a program like West Virginia, where you get great exposure to elite high-level athletes growing up, watching, whether it's Pat White, Steve Slayton, Owen Schmidt, or a generation prior to Major Harris, Reggie Rembert, right? A 1988 undefeated team and things like that. That was, I'm in sixth grade, and that was like a form of daycare. But also, both of my parents grew up on farms, one county away from Morgantown. And I think there's a intrinsic value that comes with that. My mother is a fierce competitor, whether it's watching sports and being a part of what we all do as a family, or playing Uno before you go to school in kindergarten. It doesn't matter. I think the competitive streak comes more from my mom than my dad. And then you fast forward later on when you go to choose your spouse and your mate for life. And my wife certainly is that. And she was a soccer associate head coach at West Virginia for 11 years and started a program that used to be a club team. And they would get beat by 10-0 to UConn and Notre Dame. And a couple years later, they're beating them. And, fast forward, she helps recruit a team that goes to Sweet 16, Elite 8. And then, we start our family. But that program has gone on to do some pretty special things. So Morgantown has meant a lot to myself and my wife and our entire family. So as we record this, you and I were talking off air. I'm a college football guy. love the fall. There's nothing better, I think, than fall Saturday morning practices and scrimmages. And then you leave there and you sit down. The guys come in the office, grab their lunch or food, and you're watching the third quarter of, most likely at that point in the year, it's like Akron at Penn State, and it's down to a one possession in the fourth quarter. Just kind of random. Really looking forward to taking in some college football this weekend in person and see what happens.
Yeah, man, what a great
no jabs intended. No jabs intended there with like an Akron almost beating at Penn State.
I wasn't trying to jab, but that's okay. Listen, we don't like Penn State on this network. We like Pat Kraft. We like certain individuals. James Franklin was good to me, right? But I don't like them as a whole. I'm a Temple Owl. We beat them for the first time in 75 years when I was there. And they would run up scores on us and beat the hell out of us because we weren't very good previously. So we don't like Penn State, but I liked a lot of the individuals there. So it's been good to me. It was a great place. I know it's a beautiful. You're gonna have what a great time to tailgate. You're gonna have a blast. What a good opportunity too. So talk to me about, I guess, the schedule right now for you guys. Right, it's and touch on the recruiting too. Like, take me holistically into what you have going on from a timing perspective. Where you're saying, hey, listen, we got some scrimmages coming up. We got guys back on campus. Like, it's skills and development. Are we like grinding in the weight room? Like, what's that look like holistically right now for Drexel?
Well, Drexel is a bit of a unique institution standpoint that we're one of the few schools that still operates the quarter system. So we start school much like I think Ohio State used to be. Cincinnati was like this at one point, but not many schools are doing it now. But we start our first day of class. We're on 10-week quarters. All right. Our first day of class will be September 23rd. So we still have some time. We've got some summer workouts left. So we've got a little bit of a different schedule. We're going to come back and do some work before we get into full team activities. So it feels later. It is fall, but it's more like end of July in the traditional calendar setting right now for us. So I like it. Take advantage with it. We get a little bit of time to, maybe do something with your family, travel a little bit, but also, it just keeps your guys fresh. And they'll come back. They'll be refreshed. We'll be ready to go. So that's where we are. So we'll start as soon as we get on the other side of Labor Day. Guys will be here, and we'll get some lifting going. We'll get some workouts, get into individual skill work, and then, meeting a lot as a staff and kind of breaking down things. But the recruiting calendar is as such that we'll be on the road recruiting before we start school. So we have a little bit of freedom to go hit some of our priority recruits in the next couple of weeks as that recruiting calendar opens up. So a lot going on, a little bit of a different time, but it is very much the calm before the storm, and it's about ready to. Life's going to be a blender when you factor in the start of school, sports and family for your own children, and then guys acclimating to a 10-week program. We have 7 new players thanks to this new environment that we live in college athletics. And then we hit the ground running pretty quickly. We'll have a scrimmage with George Mason. We'll have an exhibition game against Chestnut Hill. Before we know it, we've got former Temple assistant coach and a guy you may know, Matt Langle, head coach at Colgate, bringing a championship grade program from the Patriot League to play at Drexel on that opening weekend. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to come at us quickly, and we got to be ready for it. So even though it's a low-key day right now, we're still kind of talking about who's going to take the ball out, how we want to play in transition, what we want to do to attack. And I love that stuff. Like I woke up today almost like Christmas morning, chance to talk some X's and O's on a Zoom with a couple other coaches.
Each head coach, right, at one point in time, and especially with your journey, they were assistants first, right? Very few guys are JJ Redick where they just waltz right into the job. Now, JJ, I think, deserves it. He's an elite of the elite human, and he'll take his, I think people get all hung up about it, but there's coaches that have the same positives that he brings, and then they bring the people around him to fill in the gaps. The things that maybe you do well, that you love to do and do well. I'm not going to ask you what you hate to do because you love to do it all. You're a head coach. You're a lifer in this game. But there's certain things as a podcaster, as a player, as I like upper body lifting better than lower body. I rather ride the bike instead of sprint, right? Like, and then as a coach, because I do a lot of coaching on the side too, like I love to talk about the run game. I love to talk about play action. Like when we start getting all these funky coverages and stuff, I kind of check out. But for you, I'm like, come on, guys. It's either safety in the middle of the field or there's two safeties. Like, what are we doing here? Leverage the safety, go get the football. Don't make it hard. But for you as a coach, what's your wheelhouse? What do you really enjoy doing?
Well, let me start there. I'm a big bubble screen guy, right? I think bubble screens. I like to stretch the field, and I think if you make guys cover off, what is that, 52.5 yards, 53.5, right? You make people get those backers in space, and then a bubble screen leads to a wheel route, leads to something down the seam. So I'll stop. I mean, that's all my football knowledge right there. No, I love.
It's the same game, man. We are constantly in a fast break. Your pick and rolls, your power run scheme stuff, right? It's all the same. It's all the same place. Who executes the best? Who has the best relationships, right? Like that's the same.
I don't even think it matters whether it's football, basketball, baseball, softball, whatever the sport is. Who can orchestrate to get their people that are the most talented in space and give them the confidence to go make those plays? That's what it is, really, right? So we can spend a lot of time and really trying to split the atom. I think sometimes it's healthy to take that journey of to really, hey, we're going to do this, and you break it down, you look at it, and you might come back to that funnel of, hey, what puts our guys in the right spots? Where are we putting Yame Butler to really succeed? Where does Kobe McGee need to be? Where does Cole Hargrove need to be, right? And if it comes back down to it, I would rather go through that process than just sit back and say, hey, it's about players and just give them the ball and get out the way. I think there's a healthy process of parsing through that and figuring out what's good and what. So I'd rather go through it and grind and watch film. If you asked about something, I love to watch film. I love to come up with scouting reports and game plans. I love to find areas to pick on. And then I also think coaches that are known for one thing are also really good at other things, just not talked about as much, right? Like Nick Saban is this process guy, right? He's this elite tactician, right? But the reality is, too, those D-backs that are his position group, they love him, and there's way more relationship building things taking place than what he does at the podium sitting up there with the Coca-Cola, right, and Alabama football. He's very presidential, right? But I think behind the scenes, he finds a way to connect with his guys. And I think that there's other guys that are great relationship guys, but they find a way. They're a bit more X and O than people realize, and they're more students of the game. So I don't ever think it's one way or the other with coaches that are really successful. I think you got to be good at everything. And if you're not an area that you love, you better have guys on your staff that pursue that area to learn it and know it. But I do love watching film. I mean, I'll be honest with you, today and last night, I was getting ready for a Zoom call we had today, and I ended up watching, I had a clip that's called Late Game Greatest Hits that I hadn't seen in a while, that I had clipped myself. And listen, man, it's a regular season non-conference game in 2014, Western Michigan at Northeastern, and I was watching this clip ad nauseum last night. Right? So I love that stuff.
What'd you pull from it? What was the clip?
It was a good action that went into a DHO. That was kind of a foul. They played the other way. I think you could do it a little bit better now. But the reason I liked it was for one of the best three-point shooters in the country. It was late in the game. You knew that guy was going to get the shot off, and yet they still found a way to free him up. So I think actions can mean different things. Right? Like Tyler Kolek is not the world's best athlete. Tyler Kolek is an all-American basketball player, dog competitor, elite passer, great vision, and plays with incredible space. And I think what Shaka Smart did and Nevada Smith to put him in those areas is worth studying, right? So I like looking to see when Western Michigan's got an elite three-point shooter and they still find a way to get him a shot at the end of the game when they know he's going to take it. I think that's action worth studying and looking at. So those are the things I was doing last night and this morning. I love it. But then also, I think as we evolve into this era, when people can go and come anywhere, you got to give them your best effort and your best communication and relationships. And I got to know if there's a song that's going to lift our player spirit, right? For whatever reason. had a chance to spend a day with Luke Thompson, who was an assistant football coach at Army when I was coaching at West Point. He's now in the special teams room down in Jacksonville with Doug Peterson. And went down there, and he said, hey, we're going to play this song All My Life before today in film because – and he had like a list of cards, and it was like the guy who struggled the day before, that's his favorite song. So he played that going into the room. You know, the day starts, everyone's on special teams, or that's a big chunk of everybody. Yep. So the special teams meeting has to not be the same time as everything else. So everyone's there that needs to be. That song's played. The guy who got picked on or had a tough day, muffed a punt, whatever it may be, is now enjoying that song and in the right mindset and doing some things. So it just flips it. So I think that relationship building piece has grown more and more when people have the freedom and pick and choose where they can go with no sitting out consequence. They better like where you're at, and they better like what you're trying to give for them every day and do to them. Right?
Couple things to unpack there. Saban, when I ask people around football, immediately, like, I played at Bama. Tell me about Saban. Every one of them says they love him, right? And they usually see the picture of him ripping ass, right? But, like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just how you respond, how you coach after. So that's an interesting part there, too. I think you hit the nail on the head. For me, the whole thing, the whole can of worms is relationships. Because you need to know how your guys tick, how your guys play for you, who they play for, what they do. I wanted to play for my tight end coaches. I did. That's why we talk about Brian Angelico, A-Bomb, great relationship with him. Ed Foley, Temple legend, great relationship. With Kevin Gilbride, great relationship. You go through my list. Matt Rule's a tight end guy, great relationship. I want to play for them so they could turn on the tape and say, this guy does what I do. And I found great pride in that. It would make me tick. I played for external things that people would call me out for. Why do you care? What's the plan after the game? What's the plan the night before? Where are we going? That dinner after? Who's coming to the game? How can I help with your tickets? All players can't worry about that shit. Why not? Like, if anything, to me, it's the whole process. It all matters. And how you do, anything's how you do everything. So I loved it all. And everyone's like, that's a distraction. No, it's not. If you allow it to be, it is, right? I believe people also believe as a player and coach, people don't talk about this. People say, oh, you got to build up the game day. No, you're constantly flipping the switch on and off. You're a student. You're a coach. You're a dad. You're a mentor. You're a husband. You're just constantly flipping switches on and off. That's all it is. The best ones can do it the longest. And I think that's been a common thread for the successful coaches I've been around, players I've been around. But really for me, for you, like, you've coached some great players. You've coached with some great coaches. You've been around elite people, ADs, right? Army. You've been around elite people serving the country, right? Any common threads, other than the normal, the hard work. But what's the common thread? What's the internal, intrinsic kind of drive? Like, what's that like? Bring us in.
Yeah, I tell you what, you asked a really good question. Having done a handful of podcasts, no one's ever asked me that specific way. But I think you hit the word in just a different version of it. They're all driven.
Yep.
They're all driven. They've identified their why, right? And it might be family. It might be helping young people achieve something they couldn't otherwise have access to. It might be from a spiritual standpoint, glorifying God in everything they do and being that witness to people. So there's a lot of different reasons people have their why and what it is. And I think mine is a little bit of everything. We have at Drexel to get someone into school that maybe wouldn't have played basketball. They play basketball. That helps them go to Drexel. Drexel's a great school. Maybe in a different scenario, they couldn't get into Drexel. They weren't playing basketball. And I'm okay saying that because they go to Drexel. They do outstanding academically. They graduate. They get a job. They have a chance to play professional. And it's like, listen, look how they're set up. I love watching that. I love hearing about Austin Williams. We inherited, played 2 years, didn't play as much. Ended up becoming an all-conference player, an all-defensive player, plays 3 or 4 seasons overseas, right? Has a job, married, has a kid, and is doing so many awesome things, and then loves to come back and then talk to our guys. Like we're getting to the point we're going into season 9. We've had guys that have come through, have graduated, and they're doing some things, right?
I love it. You got people working on the house. You're the man. I love it. But I completely agree. I think
That's not even. That's just my own family having. I am in the kitchen. To be fair.
Sorry.
No doubt. So I thought this was really interesting. And Ken Niamanalolo, Navy coach forever. And,
Yeah.
I live in Annapolis now, right across from Navy football stadium, a great place. And I have a buddy who's a strength coach in Navy football. So I would, in the offseason, go work out there. Great facility. Awesome. And, I got to know Coach Ken a little bit. And I asked the strength coach, I said, tell me about Coach Ken. Like, what's he like? He's like, bro, his number one thing is victories over wins. We need victories, or whatever it was. I forget what this was, but I'm like, okay, what's a victory? He's like, a victory is like getting invited to a player's wedding, and victory is helping a kid achieve something off the field. The wins I thought that was really unique. That struck with me. And that's the same stuff you're talking about, like culturally, how that goes. And I think year 9, you're like, okay, here's the culture, standard, all these different things. But it's hard. And I want to transition to this. And it's an overworn topic, right? It's NIL, it's transfer portal. I'm trying to think of the right question to not drive you crazy about it, because everybody asks you, hey, coach, what's your fix? I'm not asking for the fix per se, but how do you go about your recruiting classes? Because I think there's a developmental piece where we need to go get a high school player that I think could develop to be a 3-year starter for us. And then there's a player where, you know what, we lost a shooting guard. This guy's available, and he doesn't cost $20 million in NIL money. I think we can make him a really good basketball player. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So how do you balance your recruiting classes? How do you, mortgage the future? How's that work for Drexel basketball?
Yeah, I don't know if it's Drexel basketball anywhere, but I'm a firm believer that high school players need to be a part of the equation. I want to get old and stay old. I think Mike Bray was the first to say that at Notre Dame, but it really applies to all major sports, especially when you're talking about scholarship student athletes. As this takes place and as our game evolves, you can do one of two things. You can complain about it, and you can walk around and be miserable, and this is unfair. I can't believe this. Or, well, it used to be like this back in the day. You know what? Grow up, right? Maturity isn't defined by age. That's immature thoughts and actions by older people. You have to adapt with what's going on, or you die on the vine. And we refuse to die on the vine at Drexel. Our staff does. I think you've got to find new ways. You've got to be innovative. You've got to be creative in how you present things and say, hey, yeah, you can go somewhere else and get a lot of money, or you can stay here and be the 36th guy in 20 years who played professional basketball, right? You can be the guy that continues to set the new three-point record. You also can get an elite degree. So I still think, and I'm a little bit old school to dig my heels in, there are some things that apply at Drexel. It can be a great degree, great location. Our guys play pickup with Penn. Our guys play pickup with Temple or LaSalle in the summertime. You can't go to Wyoming, random school out of a hat right there, not like lost a recruiting battle. You can't go to Wyoming and play pickup with guys at UNLV, hundreds of miles apart. Philadelphia, Drexel, in University City might be one of the greatest locations in America to be a college basketball player, because our guys, we don't have a run going. They can walk down the street to Penn and get a run. We have a run going. Tony Paris is bringing pros in that haven't gone yet back to China, Russia, Europe, all over the Europe, South America. And the runs are guys that Jason Thompson played 10, 12 years in the NBA. He's coming into Philadelphia and playing. Like, our guys get that exposure and opportunity.